Curious ka ba about watercolors but have no idea where to start?
I don't know.
Or baka you're a beginner that paints whatever you feel like, but you don't actually know what you're doing. And then when you see your artworks, you feel a bit frustrated kasi it didn't turn out how you imagined. Don't worry, kasi today, we are going to teach you 3 very simple techniques to make your first watercolor painting a success. We've taught these techniques to more than 200 Filipino beginner watercolor artists in our online watercolor painting course. They've gone from this to this in just a matter of months. Like our student Michi, whose portraits improved in just 3 months. Or our student Owen, who started small but improved his floral paintings in only 6 months. Ang galing, di ba?
Talented, brilliant, incredible.
If gusto mo din matuto ng watercolor painting so you can develop your creativity, feel more confident, de-stress, and improve your mental health, then you can book a free consultation call with us. The link is in the description.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Before you start painting, kailangan mo muna mag-warm up. Diba, when you do sports, you don't just start right away. Kailangan mag-stretch and warm up muna so you can prepare your body, relax your mind, and actually perform better. It's the same with watercolor painting. Warm-ups help you loosen your hand and wrist. You'll get to know how to handle your brush and how your watercolors behave. Once you get into your actual painting, you'll feel more comfortable and confident. So, wag natin skip yung warm-ups, okay? We're going to show you some simple watercolor exercises you can practice today. Make sure you use your watercolor paper para makita mo talaga kung ano yung effect. And when you start with the actual painting, you'll know how to handle it. Let's start with your brushstroke exercises. It might look boring and simple, but it's a great way to master brush control. Actually, muscle memory kasi to. You have to keep practicing so it becomes easier and more natural to paint with your brush. Try mo to. Fill half your paper with thin lines. Okay lang kahit hindi sobrang straight or medyo imperfect. Just try your best to make it as consistent as you can. Next, try mo yung thick lines. Press down on your brush as you go from one side to the other. After that, fill a whole paper with spirals and crescent moons. In watercolor painting, actually very common yung circular and curved na mga brush strokes. So practicing simple shapes like these will help you create complex forms later on, like yung mga petals ng rose. Next, we'll practice the tea to butter method. And no, we're not actually going to use real tea or real butter.
I can't believe it's not butter.
We're going to practice mixing your paint with just the right amount of water para makakuha tayo ng iba't ibang consistencies. First, label your paper with 5 different types of consistencies: tea, coffee, milk, heavy cream, and butter. Tea is light with more water and just enough paint to see the color. Yung kape, diba it's medyo darker than tea? So this time, when you mix your watercolors, add a bit more paint than water. These 2 consistencies are perfect for applying a thin and smooth layer of paint on your paper. The water helps the paint flow more smoothly. Now, let's talk about milk. Milk has thicker density than coffee, diba? That means more paint than water. When you apply it to your paper, dapat it should be thicker than tea and coffee, but transparent enough that you can still see some of the white on your paper. Now we're going into your last 2 consistencies, and these are going to be a bit drier than the previous ones. Nakagawa ka na ba ng mango float? It's made using heavy cream, and heavy cream is a lot thicker and more solid than milk. So when you mix for a cream consistency, you use more paint and just add a bit of water. Butter is thick and creamy, so when you're going for this consistency, you can just use the paint straight out of the tube or pan. Ano? Watercolors na walang tubig? Yup, the butter consistency is just what you need when you're using the dry brushing technique. When you paint without water, dry brushing creates a light, streaky effect. Parang butter on toast. You use dry brushing to create different textures, gaya ng grass, feathers, or kahit ocean waves. Alam ko, nakaka-tempt na mag-skip ng warm-ups. Baka akala mo it takes too much time. Actually, kahit 5 minutes lang yan that you practice your brushstrokes or half an hour studying the tea to butter method. It's your choice. Just remember, as you continue to do warm-ups before each painting, you'll be building confidence in your skills. Besides our warm-ups, kailangan din natin ng references. I mean, how are you going to paint something when you don't know what it looks like, diba? Sure, baka may idea ka, but can you really remember all of the small details? Like the color, the texture, the shape. That's where references come in. A reference is a picture or real-life object you can study so you can accurately recreate your subject in your painting. You can use objects at home. Like for example, if may bowl of fruits ka, pwede mong i-paint yun. When you go out and travel and you see beautiful sceneries, you can take pictures and then pwede mong gamitin as reference. Of course, pwede din tayong mag-search sa internet like Google Images and Pinterest. Just remember to credit the photographer if you plan to share your art on social media. You might be amazed by artists na kayang gumawa ng super realistic paintings from imagination. But what you don't know is that these artists actually have a very well-developed visual library. It takes years of practice and painting multiple subjects to be able to recall the details in your visual library. And you, as a beginner, hindi pa yan well-developed. So wag muna tayong mag-asa na if we paint from imagination, it's going to look good. Kailangan muna mag-practice tayo with references. And alam mo, even the best artists still use references. For example, landscape painter John Constable visited the Stonehenge in July 1820. Syempre, that time wala pang internet, so he really had to travel and see the Stonehenge in person. And of course, wala ding smartphones and camera noon, so he had to sketch it out. Later, he used this sketch as the basis for his watercolor painting. You can't recreate something accurately if you cannot visualize it properly. So, let's make the most out of our references. So now, tapos na tayo mag-prepare. Nag-warm up ka na, nag-gather ng references, and you're sitting in front of your paints and paper. You had such a clear idea kung ano yung gusto mong i-paint, but you're struggling to translate that all onto paper. What do we do? Here comes the last technique we're going to teach you. It's called thumbnailing. Just like warm-ups, thumbnailing is a form of experimentation and play. Walang stress to get all of the details perfect. What you do is create thumbnail sketches. They're small, quick sketches that allow you to explore different versions of the same idea, and you don't spend too much time or paint on it. On a piece of scrap paper, draw small rectangles. Ideally, the same proportion sila of your watercolor paper. If naka-landscape yung orientation ng painting mo, then dapat naka-landscape din yung thumbnails. If portraits yung orientation, then dapat portraits din yung thumbnails. You can do as many thumbnail sketches as you want. Pero remember, yung goal ng thumbnail sketch isn't to create a pretty picture. It's to explore different versions of the same idea. Experiment with key elements of your painting, like yung placement ng subject, or yung size, or yung color balance. Pwedeng pure pencil sketches lang yung thumbnails. Or you can use a bit of watercolor paint to experiment with the colors you want to use. As you work on your thumbnails, you'll figure out what works and what doesn't. Once you have your favorite thumbnail, ayan na, you can finally start painting. In case you still feel intimidated to start watercolor painting on your own, then I invite you to apply to our online watercolor painting course. You'll be together with pro watercolor artists like Sir John Lapore and Sir Eman Silva, who have joined multiple exhibits and even won painting contests. Plus, you'll be in a very supportive community of fellow aspiring watercolor artists. You can book a free consultation call if you want to learn more. The link is in the description. In the meantime, if you want more inspiration, here's an interview of one of our students. She learned how to paint with watercolors in just 4 months. Enjoy!